All right, boys and girls, for math today, we are starting a new unit. I have not had time to get through all of the math tests that you guys took yesterday, so I will work on that this weekend and hopefully have them all graded by Saturday. So I just wanted to let you know the status on those. So I have not given out any Smarties yet and haven't given out any shout outs on the math test because I have not got them all done yet. But this week we are starting a new unit. We are starting a unit on clocks. We have already done clocks and time earlier in the year, but we're going to go back and hit it again and maybe add a few new things in. So I just wanted to teach you a little bit about that before we start our work today. So the first thing is I'm gonna be flipping between me and my computer so I can show you some things on it, and I'll be talking while I do that. Okay. All right. So on the computer, I have pulled up two different clocks. I have a clock that looks like this, and then I have a clock that looks like this. Okay, and both of those clocks do the same job. They both tell time. They both show us that time is constantly passing. They just display it a little bit differently. All right, and even in the Bible, it talks about time. In Ephesians 5:16, it tells us that we need to make the most of our time and use our time in the best way because the days are evil. So using our time wisely is part of what pleases God, and it's part of what God has called us to do. So even while we're at home every day, and even for myself, we need to make sure that every day we're saying, Lord, you've given us this day, and we will never get this day again. So how can we use our time best so that we can serve other people and serve you? And so that is part of what God has called us to do. And the best way that we can learn how to use our time well, the first step is learning how to tell time. So we know how time is passing and whether or not we're using it wisely or not. So today we're going to look at the clocks a little bit and we're going to review a couple of things. So the first thing we're going to review is we're going to review how many minutes are in an hour. Okay, so there are 60 minutes, 60 minutes in 1 hour. Okay, so that's the first thing we want to talk about. Let's look at, I'm going to flip this around, get to my right things. So if we look at this clock, all right, this number here tells us the hour, so it is 10 o'clock. And this over here tells us the minute, so it is 10:30. A lot of you may have a clock like this if you have an alarm clock in your bedroom or your parents have an alarm clock. It looks something like this. But the hour is always here and the minutes are always here. I think for boys and girls, it's easier for you to read a clock like this than it is the analog clock. So this is a digital clock that we've already learned this, and this is the analog clock, okay? All right, so this clock has the moving hand. So this one that's moving right now, this red one that's moving kind of fast is the seconds hand. So it's counting by seconds, like 1, 2, 3, 4. It's counting the seconds, and there are 60 seconds in 1 minute, okay? All right, we have two hands here. We have the blue hand on this clock and the red hand, all right? We have learned that the shorter hand touches the hour, and if it is between two numbers, you always look back, okay? We've talked about this in the past. So this time would be 9, okay? Because it's between 9 and 10, but we always look back, all right? This longer hand points to the minutes. And so we've talked too about how each one of the dots, these little dots, are minutes. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And every big dot on a clock counts by 5. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Okay, so we've talked about how we read the numbers on the clock. The hours are the actual numbers that you see, and the minutes, you're counting by ones with the little dots and 5s if you count by the big ones. So if we were to look at this clock right now, the time would be 9, 25, 26, 27, 28. 9:28 would be the time on the clock right now, okay? If we talk about how many ticks it takes, so if we're at 12 for minutes, okay, so let's say it's 9 o'clock, because at the 12, it's o'clock. If it's 9 o'clock, it takes 5 ticks to get to 9:05. So it would go 1 for 9:01, 9:02, 9:03, 9:04, 9:05, okay? And then we count by 5s to go around the clock. Okay, so that is just a little review of what we've talked about in clocks so far from the beginning of the year. I think where sometimes we struggle or where we get confused is we write the same number for numbers and minutes. So we would, if it like right now, it's about 9 30 and the hand is on the 6, we would say 9:06. And so remember, only the hours are the actual numbers on the clock. The minutes we count by 5s where the numbers are, okay? All right, so today, the work that you're gonna be doing, let me look at your book, is at the beginning of it, you're just gonna have a clock, and they have given you on the clock, they have given you these numbers right here, the 1, the 2, the 3, and they want you to count by minutes. And they've got some little bubbles kind of out here. And so what you're gonna do is you're gonna count by 5s, and you're gonna write a 5 and a 10 and a 15, because that number 3 on the clock is equal to 15 minutes. So they're wanting you to put the minutes around the outside, counting by 5s, okay? So I'm gonna give you a clue. You're gonna start with 5, and you're gonna go all the way around, and you're gonna end with 60. Up at the top, okay? So that is one part of your math assignment for today. You are going to have to know how many minutes are in an hour. We talked about that at the beginning of this video. So 1 hour is equal to how many minutes? I told you at the beginning of the video. I didn't tell you this part. 1/2 of an hour, so half of an hour is equal to 30 minutes. So that's like if the hand is down at the 6. If it's at the 6, it's always half of a whole hour, and the 6 always means 30 minutes. Okay, and then you're just gonna have to look at some clocks, and you're gonna have to write what time it is on the clock. And then some of them, they have given you the time, and they've given you some choices so that you have to guess what time it is on the other clock. So they might have given you the time on an analog clock, and you have to mark the digital clock time. Okay, so it's just being able to read both sets of clocks together. And I think that's all. Okay, so that's just a little review of clocks. That's what we've learned earlier this year, and just kind of what we're building on today. But today we're gonna start working on time to the half hour, okay? And so a half hour is 30 minutes. All right, boys and girls, I can't wait to see your good work.